Chris Liss of RotoWire TV, and we are very pleased to have our SiriusXM radio producer, Ivy Armstrong, here with us in California. We do the SiriusXM show every day, 8 to 11 Pacific time, my time. I think of it that way. It's 11 to 2 Eastern on XM87 Sirius 210. So we'll give a little shout out to the station and to our show, RotoWire Fantasy Sports Today, which you produce.
Yes.
And somehow, in all the days that you and I sit there, and you're in DC producing the show, and I'm in LA doing the show, I haven't answered a particular question of yours.
I want to talk about specifically the sure things. I feel like after the first 4 or 5 picks, it's just a crapshoot. So, like, who can I go for if I have, say, the 8th or the 9th or the 10th, the 11th, those picks like in there, even before the wheel, because I feel like there's an advantage to being on the wheel also. But those people after the first 5 picks or so, it just seems like it falls off and there's no sure thing.
Well, if you want a sure thing, right, and you don't.
I want a sure thing in the first round.
Right. If you want a sure thing, which relatively speaking in football, what that means.
There's no sure thing.
Right. But no, I understand what you're saying. Someone you feel comfortable spending your highest investment, your first round pick on, you're going to have to take a quarterback. Okay. So a lot of people don't like to draft quarterbacks because you only need one of them, and there's plenty of sure things for good production like Matt Ryan or Eli Manning in round 7 or 8. Eli probably a little higher, but Matt Ryan in 7 or 8. You could probably get Ben Roethlisberger, who's a sure thing, in a lot of bad ways too, in round 10. But the point is, like, you can definitely get quarterbacks that are sure things. But if you want a quarterback who's going to put up big numbers, and it's pretty likely to do so, Tom Brady, Drew Brees. Those are your sure things in round 1. Now, as I said, the downside of that is you're going to be getting even less sure things among running backs, rather than the people who gamble a little at that end of the first round with Chris Johnson, DeMarco Murray, who I'm very scared of. And I kind of agree with you. I would take Brady or Brees probably ahead of DeMarco Murray.
Right, because it just doesn't, if you're going to get, say, 40 points from Tom Brady, don't you have to take him there before you take, one of these other guys? We
cover this in a different video a little bit in the sense that, you get 40 points from Tom Brady depending on what your scoring system is. But if you get 40 from Brady, you get 30 from Matt Ryan. Sure thing, right? Pretty much. Not as sure of a thing, but almost a sure thing. And so it's kind of like, okay, so you're losing 10 points on that exchange. Is there any running back at that point that gets you 10 more points than the running back you wind up with if you go quarterback first? And that's the question you're going to be asking yourself. One of the questions. But I actually agree with you. And there's a guy who's been writing articles for RotoWire lately that's been saying take a quarterback in the first round for that very reason, saying that with your early picks, the quarterbacks are much more projectable and repeatable than running backs, except for the top 3 running backs or top 5. So he would actually agree with you.
Well, you guys are notoriously, you've been preaching this since we've been working together, where you take a quarterback later. And I have subscribed to that sort of thinking, but I feel like it's starting to turn around.
Well, I kind of agree with that also because quarterbacks have been more reliable than they have in the past, and Dalton Del Don has been preaching this more than I have, and I've even been arguing with him that Aaron Rodgers could be the first overall pick, arguably, and he will argue against it because he happened to get Matt Stafford and Eli Manning last year late. But, if he may have a superpower to get a great quarterback late every time, but if he doesn't, then, one of these years he's going to pay the price for waiting on quarterbacks. RotoWire TV, this is Ivy Armstrong, SiriusXM's RotoWire Fantasy Sports Today producer. You can catch the show that she produces. I am mean to her on the air, it is true. 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
On Fantasy Sports Radio.
Fantasy Sports Radio, XM87, Sirius 210, every weekday.